This content will provide you about the salient features of the scrutiny of a case file pertaining to the case where the victim has been subject to serious sexual violence. Here you will be able to understand the striking points which are required to be taken into account while scrutinizing the case file of such offense before it is forwarded to court for the purpose of trial.
You will see an animated video where a senior prosecution officer will be discussing different aspects of a serious sexual violence case.
Hello, sir.
How can I help you, officer?
I need to discuss different aspects of a sexual violence case so that the dents in the investigation of the same are worked out before the case is forwarded to the court for trial.
Yes, sure. That will be highly appreciated. You know, first and foremost thing I would like to make it clear to you that it is imperative that the prosecutor who takes the case to trial to ensures that the case file has been fully investigated and that all possible evidences have been collected.
Yes, I understand. Prosecution of a case needs high level of legal understandings and experience.
Officer, I understand that you know that in criminal cases like the case in hand, we must understand that the first and foremost approach is that we must have to see that whether the investigation officer has limited himself to the contents of the first information report, FIR, or otherwise, which scrutinizing a criminal case, because the investigation ceases to look for any other evidence that might support another prosecution theory, or look for another explanation. It is my duty to see that whether the investigation officer has limited his investigation to the extent of the contents of the FIR, or have done something cogent to thoroughly investigate the case. Here I would like to add further that while scrutinizing a case of serious sexual violence, we have to take into account that prosecution must stand on his own legs and prove the case against the accused beyond reasonable doubt, as onus of proof lies heavily upon the prosecution. We have to see that whether the available evidence is sufficient to link that the offense has been committed by the accused charged with the commission of offense.
You mean that we have to take into account the quality of evidence, and not the quantity, which determine the culpability of the accused.
The case of serious sexual violence needs extra care and expertise. In such cases, the victim is often not in the position to respond properly to the questions raised by the investigation officer. The investigation officer must try to win the confidence of the victim. He should not put any sort of pressure upon the victim or her family. I would like to add that we have to see that the investigation officer have collected all available evidences which are required for bringing home the accused, because accused cannot be held guilty on the strength of weak piece of evidence arising from a doubtful source. Similarly, accused cannot be held guilty on the basis of conjectures, probabilities, or presumption. I want to add one thing more, that I believe in cases of sexual violence, statement of witnesses must be in consonance with the probabilities fitting in the circumstances of the case, and confidence inspiring to appeal a man of prudence mind. It is important that investigation officer must have collected the forensic, circumstantial and ocular evidences, and that all these evidences have been properly collected and documented. This is the key of success.
Yes, sir. I understand.
Sir, can I join you? I am serving as a prosecution officer for the last 4 years. I am really interested to know more about serious sexual violence.
Yes, of course. In the prosecution aspect, it is important that he must have consulted thoroughly with the victim before the trial commences. This process of voluntary attendance must be facilitated by ensuring presence of a guardian or support person in case of vulnerable victims. The prosecutor must ascertain what fears the victim has and attempt to relieve these fears. It is often useful to familiarize the victim beforehand with the courtroom itself. Additionally, all the court proceedings must be explained to the victims so that they can fully understand. It is equally important for the prosecutor and the investigation officer that the victims need to be treated with the utmost empathy and respect at all times. Where possible, the district public prosecutor must ensure that a female prosecutor is present to attend these meetings. It is for the understanding of both of you, Mr. Investigation Officer and Prosecutor, that, while investigating and thereafter scrutinizing a serious sexual violence case file for the purpose of trial, the investigation officer have to see that all available physical evidence, including semen, blood samples, have been properly collected through an authorized person. The investigation officer must also look for digital evidence and video CCTV recordings, etc., and make sure its availability on the file. We must also see that whether the investigation officer has video recorded the crime scene. If it is so, whether the certificate from FSL is appended with the file or not. Similarly, it must be ensured that victim is medically examined, and the report of the doctor must be appended with the file. If there exists any sort of digital evidence, it must be confirmed that analysis of all digital devices has been carried out, and certificates from the FSL is available on file. More. We must have to see that, while collecting the forensic evidence, the investigation officer has taken all measure to avoid contamination of evidence from the crime scene or otherwise. We must have to see that what sort of evidence the investigation officer has collected to substantiate that transporting all evidence to forensic laboratories was done safely, and before transportation it was in the safe custody of the Maher of the police station concerned. 19. Wherein the details of the case property are mentioned.
Sir, being a young prosecutor, I often see accused charged in heinous offense, particularly those of serious sexual violence, take benefits of technicalities. We must have to take care of it.
I am allowed? Can I give a fingertip counts of the required actions by the investigation officer?
Yes, that will be fantastic.
Okay, at scrutiny stage of the case, it must be seen carefully that the case file contain these documents and details. MAJ report or application of complainant. Copy of FIR and the relevant case diaries. Site plan. Recovery memos. Injury sheets and medico-legal reports. Copy of applications to FSL. Chemical examiner report. Serologist report. DNA report of accused. Card of arrest. Medical examination of victim, as well as accused. MLR of authorized medical officer. Extracts from prescribed pro forma register. Determination of age of victim, in case of juvenile. Closure report or cancellation report. Challen.
I wanted to add that additionally, the prosecutor may want to consider the following as well. Copy of confession, if any. Evidence regarding motive. CDR report of accused with digital evidence. Identification parade of accused. Statement of 161 and 164 CR, P, C. 87, 88 and 204 CR, P, C. Application for remands. Decision of Jirga members regarding Swara, Wani or Battle e Sula. Statement of victim in case of Swara etc. Record regarding ownership of property of women under Section 498 APPC. Digital evidence CCTV. Video recording. Mobile AMP, laptops data. Email, SMS. Storage devices etc.
All these enable a prosecutor to establish his stance before the court in a serious sexual violence case with full confidence. Friends, this was really a fruitful discussion. Mr. Investigation Officer, hope now an accused cannot escape punishment.
I hope so.
Sir, I think now I am equipped legally to properly scrutinize a serious sexual violence case properly before forwarding the same to courts for trial.